Hey everybody, Bill 1911 here. Hey, today we're going to look at a little gun that's made by the, well, it was made by the High Standard Company. This is a very old gun. This has been around quite a while. This one's in pretty darn good shape. It's wasn't, I would say, a top gun in its day, but it certainly wasn't a bad one. Okay, this is the High Standard. This is a revolver, 22 caliber, and it is a 9-shot. So like always, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open this puppy up, and we are going to make certain that there is no ammunition in the gun. We're going to open the gun like this. You pull this pin outward. That unlocks the cylinder to slide out of the frame, okay? And we can look in and we can see that there is no ammunition in this revolver. So this one is clear. So we're going to show you how to clean it. What I am not going to do to this gun is take it apart. This is not my gun. This belongs to a friend, and he was kind enough to let us use it. This has an aluminum frame, steel barrel. It's really a decent gun. It's not bad at all. It's got good points, it's got bad points like all guns. But the thing I like about this gun is it shoots very well, and I can see the sights very well on it. Okay, so it's a good gun. It shoots targets very, very well. Alright, so let's get started. Cleaning is like we clean every other gun. It's not any different. We get our rod and we set to work. Alright, now usually I use a jag on these things, but today I'm going to use a thimble because that's going to give you just a little different perspective on what we're doing. If you don't have a jag and all you have is a thimble, well, let's show you how to use it. Oh, open up you. Alright, so this is a thimble, okay? This is a jag. Both are 22 caliber and both screw into the end of our gun cleaning rod. Okay? Now if you notice, this gun has a fairly long barrel on it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to check and make sure that the gun rod is long enough to go all the way through, and it is. So with that said, we're going to start cleaning. Now, I've said this before and I'll say it again. When you're cleaning a 22 caliber, you need to use 22 caliber brushes, or excuse me, patches. These are 22 caliber patches. These are 30 caliber patches. These are much larger. Now you need to use the correct size patch, and this is the reason why. When you put a 30 caliber patch, that's the big one, the wrong one, in this thimble, it'll go through and you can kind of pull it into place. But here's where the problem comes in. When you start putting it down the barrel, okay, the patch wraps down over the top of the back end of this rod, okay, and when it does that, it makes it too thick to go through the barrel. So you need a patch that when it's folded all the way down doesn't do that. One of these 22 patches, very small, okay, we fold them diagonally, we put them through the thimble, okay, and as you can see, when it's folded all the way down, it's still in the recessed area here of this 22 caliber thimble. Now it does the same thing on the jag. If you look at the very back of the jag right here, this little collar, this is closer to the size of the actual cleaning rod, which means the rest of the jag is substantially thinner. So if we, again, we put one of these 30 caliber patches on a jag, what's going to happen is that 30 caliber jag is going to become too big to go through the barrel because of how the patch wraps down over the sides of it in this collar area. It's going to jam it in the barrel. So again, a 22 caliber patch works very well on these. Now if all you have are 30 caliber patches, all you need to fix that is a pair of scissors. You can cut one of these in 4 pieces and you come up with 4 22 caliber patches. These are about 2 inches across. These are about 1 inch across, so you can get 4 of them out of one of these 30 caliber patches. So, the first thing we need to do is get the patch wet with bore cleaner. Now, I'm using this military surplus bore cleaner because it was inexpensive and I could get a lot of it. Well, I clean a lot of guns, so I needed a lot. So we're going to wet the patch, and then we're going to put the cap back on the material, because if you knock that bore cleaner over on your wife's nice light colored carpet, she is not going to be happy with you. So I kind of like to keep my wife happy. I mean, I like the girl and everything else, but anyway, so we're going to put the patch back through the thimble here that we had in here a second ago. All right, well, too far. Pulled too much. Get about halfway through, and now we're going to start with a bore, and we're going to put this down the bore. Now I'm going to show you a little trick, okay? Sometimes you can't get a lot of pressure on the sides of the bore, so what we're going to do, if I can keep the cylinder open and show you this, is we're going to push that patch till it just starts to peek out, okay? Like that. And then when we pull it back, what will happen is you'll see that that patch is going to kind of swell up like that, and when we pull it back into that barrel, it's going to be a nice tight fit, and it's going to allow us to scrub the inside of that barrel very thoroughly, okay? And that's what we want. We want a nice clean bore. So we're going to work that a little bit back and forth. Now on my other videos, I've shown you that you don't want to take a brush and go part way down the barrel and turn around and back. You can do that with a patch, okay? But don't do it with a brush, because what happens is the bristles, they bend back as you're pushing it one way, and then when you try to pull it back, they have no place to go, so they end up kinking and bunching up, and when they do that, the diameter of your brush actually shrinks, and it doesn't do as good a job. So when you're using a brush, you want to go all the way through and out the other side, then turn around and come back with it all the way through, okay? Well, we're not doing that. Right now, we're just getting things wet with bore cleaner so that we can clean the powder deposits out of this gun. So we're going to go through these chambers a few times and get them nice and wet and start this process of cleaning up this gun. All right. Now this thing isn't terribly dirty. We didn't shoot it a lot the other night. We were working on a video called Flash Effect 2. And with that video, what we were looking at, we were filming at night the muzzle flash off of these guns. And we got some really nice still capture photos out of it that are going to go for sale on our website in just a short time. We still have to do some work on monetizing the website. But we're going to take care of that. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, since I still have material or bore cleaner in this patch, is I'm going to go ahead and use it to clean up some of the areas that tend to get dirty with powder deposits. I'm going to get them wet down so that they will be cleaned completely when we clean this up the rest of the way. So we're just going to kind of rub this in here like this and get all this cleaned up. Alright, now another place that gets really dirty is up here in the top of the frame. Now I'm going to take this white patch and show you. We take this up here and we do that, you can see the dirt that came out of there, and that's just from dry rubbing it. So we need to get some bore cleaner in there to loosen up those powder deposits. Now, around the end of the barrel here, where it sticks out into the frame, okay, a lot of stuff tends to collect in here, so we want to try and work that little patch in there if we can and get all that cleaned up. This area of the barrel is called the forcing cone, and what it does is it starts out a little bigger in diameter than .22 caliber at the mouth, and then it constricts down. Well, what that does is that makes that bullet kind of steers it into the bore so that it goes in straight down the barrel and it flies straight that way. This is called a forcing cone. Okay, you have these on revolvers. You don't have them on semi-automatics per se. It's a little different, but this is called the forcing cone. So I'm trying to show you this. I hope I don't have my big head in the way. Alright, work that patch into that top up there. Alright, so. Alright, what we call this process of getting everything wet, this is mopping. Okay, we're mopping everything up so that it's nice and wet, so that when we then turn around and clean it the other way, all those deposits come out very nicely. So, from here, we're going to get ourselves another 22 patch, okay? And we're going to work it in that barrel in just a moment. But what we also want to do is, on a lot of guns, I don't feel like you have to use the brush every time, but on 22 caliber, I think you do, and there is a reason why. Lead bullets, as they go into the barrel, they're very hot, and they tend to leave lead deposits in a ring around the mouth of the barrel. It has a name. It's called the dreaded donut, and it builds up in all 22s unless you brush them pretty religiously. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to stick this down the barrel, and now this brush is too long to make it all the way through and out. Okay, so right now I've got no choice but to change directions, and as I do, it's going to damage that end of the brush a little bit. But most of the brush is still going to be full diameter and still going to do a good job for us. So one of the things that's happening right now as I'm brushing this barrel is any powder or lead deposits that are in there, well, they're now getting pulled loose and they are suspended in that bore cleaner that we put in here, okay? And we're going to have to dry that out in a minute. Now, we're also going to do all 9 chambers, okay? Now, do it a couple times, go to the next one, and this is 2. And this is 3. So if we... and 9. Okay, so we brushed all 9 of the cylinders on this thing, and from here we're going to get out a cleaning brush, okay, and we're going to do some brush work inside the frame here to make sure that everything is out of this. Now we're going to use a bronze brush, okay, or a plastic brush. Remember, this receiver is aluminum, okay, which means it's a soft metal. And we don't want to scratch it up, so we're going to use a soft brush on it so that it doesn't tear up the finish inside. So once we get all these areas clean, okay, we get them brushed, we should be ready to start drying things up, and then we can inspect our bore to make sure it's nice and clean. All right? So there's an area on revolvers that quite frequently gets neglected, and I'm going to show you where that is. Okay. When this is open and you press this pin backwards, that way, it actuates this ejector wheel, okay? Now if you look right down in there, there's a whole lot of dirt back in there that has not been cleaned out in a very long time. So we're going to have to get in there and get that cleaned up. So I'm going to have to wet another patch because I don't have any wet material down in there. And we're going to clean this puppy up right. So that's an area that gets neglected a lot on all revolvers. It's not just this one. For some reason, people just don't seem to get in there and clean it the way they should. So if you own a revolver, it doesn't have to be 22. If you have a 38 revolver, you're going to end up with the same kind of situation. You're going to end up with this area that can be neglected. Now, I'm going to use a screwdriver in this to move this patch around, but I'm going to do it very carefully because, again, we don't want to scratch anything up. As I told you earlier, this gun belongs to one of our friends, and he was kind enough to let us use it to make this video and to show you how to clean this gun up. So we want to take especially good care of it. Right? Now, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a big hard deposit right there that isn't coming out very easily. So We're going to have to take this and turn it around and get it in there a little better. Okay, it just came out. So this area is very common to be neglected on revolvers. So if you haven't done yours, the next time you clean it, make sure you do that. Alright, I'm going to try and get this big glob out here so you can see it. Alright. Put this on this patch and you'll be able to see it very well. This is what just came out from underneath that little star wheel. Can you see that big glob right there? That's all burnt powder and lead deposits and all the rest. So we want to do something about that. Now, one of the things that I didn't do today that I should have, I need to redirect one of my cameras here. So if you'll give me just a moment, we will redirect this guy right down here to what we're doing. There we go. Now we're looking good. Okay, pick it up and you can still see it. Good. Okay. So from here, we're going to continue cleaning this gun up. Now, it's okay to use a 30 caliber patch when you're cleaning the outside. Just be aware that it isn't going to work with that thimble or that rod. We're going to have the 22 patches for that. So let's get things cleaned out and cleaned up. We've got to get behind there again. Get all that stuff out of there again. Alright, I think we're pretty clean back there now. We were pretty bad before, but just a little bit back down in here we still got to get out. Alright, now, this is actually pretty common to have this happen on guns, so if it's happened to you, don't get shook up. It's actually pretty normal, okay? So, one of the other things we need to do on these is, this is a bearing surface. This is what the cylinder rotates on. So we're going to want to try and get some oil in here when we do this. We're also going to want to get a little bit of oil in here. We want that arm to swing freely. We don't want it to bind up to where we can't get the cylinder out of the gun. That's going to cause us a problem, okay? So that's what we're doing. Now we'll get another patch and we'll finish cleaning the inside of the frame. And there's a lot of dirt coming out of here, so it was dirty, as you can see. And we're going to fix all that dirtiness right now. Okay. Oh, wow, pulled my patch apart. Oh well. That happens, I guess. Alright, so from here, we're going to have to now dry out the barrel and the chambers. Now the chambers, I'm going to use only one patch for every 2 chambers. Now the reason why I'm using one patch for every 2 is because these patches have 2 sides to them. There's this what they call double nap flannel. You have nap on this side and you have nap on the other side. So they're very absorbent on both sides. So we can actually use them twice. So we're going to start by putting it back in our thimble. Now I'm using the thimble this time because not everybody has a jag. If you go to your local gun shop, if you don't have a jag and you want to use one, I'm sure they can help you to get one. They're not all that expensive, a couple bucks, but they do a really good job. So we're going to start with this cylinder. Okay, we're going to push it through and out the other side, and I will show you there's a lot of material coming out of here. Okay, so you can see from this all that dirt in there that came out of that first chamber. So we're going to take the patch out. We're going to turn it inside out or fold it in the opposite direction if you prefer. And we're going to put it back into our thimble. Alright. And then we're going to go on to chamber number 2. Now I'm going to do the rest of this off camera because it's a long, laborious process. Okay, that's number 9. Alright, so we've done all 9 of the chambers, and now we're going to do the barrel. So I'm going to switch to a fresh patch, okay, and I'm going to put it in, and I'm going to try and show you a difference here, if I can. Now, if you're cleaning your barrel and you're using a jag, you're going to get a lot more pressure on the sides of the barrel as you put this patch through. It's a tighter fit. Sometimes it's a very tight fit. But I showed you that little trick about putting the patch part way through, coming out the other end, and then turning around and pulling it backwards, and how it bunches up and makes things tighter. Okay, so the difference in how it cleans is pretty dramatic. But you can see how much that just pulled out of that barrel. That's quite a bit. So, next thing we're going to do is inspection. Okay, so let's take a look and let's see what we got. Now, one of the things that I like to do is take a white patch and just stick it inside the frame. Okay, and what that does is it reflects light up into the barrel. Now, if you can look on that, you can actually see down that barrel quite well, but when I remove the patch, if I can hold the gun straight, you can see it kind of goes away. So putting that patch in there makes a dramatic difference in how well you can see down that barrel. Alright, so with that in mind, I'm going to look down the barrel now, and that barrel just looks spotless. It looks really, really good. As I look through the chambers, same thing. I'm just going to kind of reflect it up off the mat there. And I do see a piece of, looks like fuzz down here in one of the chambers, okay, that is residual from cleaning that chamber. So, alright, and it came right out. And as you can see, it's just a little piece of fuzz that wound up on the end of my rod here. Okay, and you can see a little fuzz. That was actually inside the chamber. So, inspection is important because things can get missed. You know, I mean, it's possible that you thought you cleaned all 9 chambers, but you didn't. So, that's the kind of thing that we're going to make sure is clean. We reviewed cleaning behind your ejector. These are just important places to clean. Now, all of these places where things move back and forth and metal is dragging on metal, these are candidates for oil. Down here in South Florida, I'm going to use a lot more oil on this gun than you might think is necessary. The problem is down here is the humidity that we have is so high that when you take this outside from about 70 degrees inside your house, you go outside and it's about 90 to 95 degrees. That's a 20-degree shift in temperature. So this cold gun hits that hot, wet air outside and immediately everything sweats. That condensation is all over everything on this gun. So it is very possible to get a lot of rust in places that you can't even see in this gun because they got wet. Don't use a lot. One little drop should be plenty. Okay, and you want to work it back and forth to make sure it's working properly. There's a little button right back here on the back here. This little button, okay, it moves in and out on a spring. All right, so we're going to want to put a little bit of oil on that. And again, I have people tell me I use too much oil, and that is one train of thought. The thing about guns is everybody has a different opinion about just about everything. So if you don't want to do it this way, don't get balled up and, oh, well, Bill said you have to do it that way. Well, Bill's in a different environment. Bill is in a very wet environment. If you're out in the Midwest, it's dry as popcorn out there. If you use this much oil in there, what's going to happen is that oil is going to do what we call fouling. And fouling is where that oil stiffens up and the gun just doesn't really function anymore after a certain point. So there is an argument about not using too much oil, but I think a lot of things depend upon your environment, where you're at, what you're doing, etc. So that's kind of the way I approach things. All right, I tend to err on the side of caution that an unlubricated part can run into some pretty bad issues. All right, so I like to make sure that we've got plenty of lubrication before we put her back together. One thing I neglected to do that I did want to touch base with, this is a rag that is impregnated with silicone. Now what this silicone does is it's a metal preservative and it works very well to prevent rust in areas on the gun that can rust, such as this barrel is blued steel. So we're going to clean it up with this rag, and that's going to wipe silicone all over it, okay? We're also going to do the frame, and what that's also going to do is it's going to make it have almost like a wet look to it. And it's going to look nice, but it's going to be well preserved, and I'm more interested in preserving it well than I am how it looks. But that's my preference. Everybody's got their own feelings. Some people would rather do this with oil or something else. Now, if you're going to wipe this thing down, remember you're going to have a position at the top and the bottom that didn't get wiped down if you don't rotate that cylinder around. Okay, so now that we've rotated the cylinder on both sides, we can get it all done. All right, there we are. So that gets our pistol wiped down. Okay, just going to make sure it's good and clean. Now, one of the cool things about silicone is that it actually dives kind of into any of the pores that are in the metal, okay? And it's going to make this gun, it's going to preserve it extremely well. Now, there is a place that's kind of hard to get to when the cylinder is closed. So you're going to want to pull the pin, open the cylinder, and get under there at the bottom side of that barrel. Okay, right in there. Right down in there. Okay, so there we are. All right, we've got a nice clean gun. It looks shiny, it looks clean, it looks nice, and there we are. I'm Bill 1911. We'll see you next time. Hey everybody, Bill 1911 here. Hey listen, if you're watching this video, if you're enjoying it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, okay? That's really important to us. And make sure you like us, and by all means, come to visit us at AskBill1911.com.